What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench podcast network and channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew. I'm talking about Shy, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right, that's right. For everyone who's tuning in, we hope that you support Behind the Bench. Continue doing so. Become a subscriber and help make this show the best that it can be. And I tell you what, we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our content. And I just want to give a shout out to one of our subscribers who caught something that needed to be corrected. I did a video about the All-Star game, and I had mentioned that the All-Star game originated in the mid-'60s, but he correctly pointed out that the first All-Star game occurred in 1951. So I just want to give a shout out to our subscribers. And like I said, we want that feedback. And if we share something that's misinformed, please let us know and provide us with the correct information. And we'll definitely highlight that the next time we communicate. And we really appreciate it. Now, every day, man, every freaking day, when they really should be talking about the ills, the problems that currently afflict the National Basketball Association, the greatest basketball league we've ever seen. They refuse to do it, though. So their go-to move or their default move when all else fails is this debate that continues to fester and linger, and they will not let it go. When they should be discussing about the negative impact that the super team era has generated over these past 15 years, they refuse to do so. See, they always have, something is off, and something's heading in the wrong direction when they have to try to generate points of reason, points of rationale, come up with new terms such as player empowerment and load management. You headed down a slippery slope. So when you do that, there's no wiggle room, and the vice gets tighter and tighter. You're squeezing all the blood out the turnip. So they say. So they shouldn't be talking about a debate right now. And when I say that, man, I can see like, let's say after a championship takes place in NBA, NFL, or Major League Baseball, just like the Super Bowl. Okay, the Kansas City Chiefs win back-to-back Super Bowls. Then there's a discussion, where do they rank in history of all-time great teams, or where does Patrick Mahomes rank? Okay, you can tolerate that. You can tolerate that. Because Patrick Mahomes has won his third Super Bowl, and I get it. But do you notice football season is over now? They already getting ready for the draft. The NFL draft takes place in April, and they focusing on new coaching hires for next year and upcoming free agency. That GOAT conversation in football, they set that aside, right? It had its appropriate time for discussion, and now they're moving forward. Major League Baseball will always revere its luminaries. They're always going to do it. They will not let those luminaries, the past greats of the game, be tarnished or diminished or trashed. They won't do it. As a matter of fact, the environment associated with Major League Baseball does not even encourage that type of behavior. Opening night, they celebrate Jackie Robinson. They call it Jackie Robinson Day. Or opening day. They call it Jackie Robinson Day. So that sets the tone. Stuff like that sets the tone. And I'm sure they don't do it in the National Hockey League. Wayne Gretzky is still revered to this day as the great one. Mario Lemieux. All the great hockey players, man. Gordie Howe. You know what I'm saying? Eric Lindros. You see what I'm saying? Mark Messier. This is the only sports league. And it didn't used to be like this. It used to be like Major League Baseball, National Football League, and National Hockey League. Or even if you want to start talking about individual sports, boxing. To this day, Muhammad Ali is universally recognized as the greatest when it comes to heavyweights. And when you look at the competition, the level of fighters that he went up against during his career, there's a reason why he's referred to as the greatest, you know. And there's been other great boxers, right? And they have their place in history, man. Now, they may have a debate about, you know, like when Tyson was in his prime and there was debates about, man, who would win between Tyson and Ali? But it was fun. It wasn't like if a fan of Tyson picked Iron Mike, they didn't trash Ali or his era to try to prove that Tyson was better. It was all about the matchup itself. So that was fun. That was fun. This is not fun right here in the NBA. This is visceral and is mean-spirited. And I try not to participate in this. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, man, look, it's like this. Either someone is better or they're not. The eye test will never fail. The moment of truth reveal who is who and who's not. Or as Bill Parcells, legendary NFL coach of the New York Giants, later on the New York Jets, the New England Patriots, the Dallas Cowboys, but mainly the New York Giants. He said, you are what your record says you are. If you're a running back and you fumble, at that moment, you are a fumbler. Like, it was point blank. Okay. Me personally, like I said, I tried to get into this debate, man. I really focus on the current NBA landscape. That's what I've chosen to do. I've chosen to, you know, follow and enjoy this young talent that is slowly making their presence known. And when I say slowly, the reason I say that is because these sports shows that cover the NBA and these talking heads, they really refuse to highlight their success. And like when they talk about a team like Oklahoma City and what they're doing, it's almost like after the fact. It's almost like a means to an end to what they really want to talk about. You see what I'm saying? Like back in the 90s, in recent time, in today's critique, expansion of the 90s, which really started in 1988. It did not start during the Chicago Bulls championship run. It started in 1988 after the Lakers won back-to-back championships. Going into that following season, 88-89, that's when the new wave of NBA expansion took place. But today's critique will criticize the expansion period, where every decade featured a round of expansion, right? Remember, the league started off with 8 teams. So how did it get from 8 to 30? That's where we stand now, 30 teams. Me personally, I don't think the NBA needs to expand anymore, but there's talks that they will. So how do you get from 8 to 30? teams. Only way you can do it, you have to expand. Like when the ABA disbanded, those most of the ABA teams, the top ABA teams, they merged and became associated and included in the NBA. So you had expansion, a wave of growth in the 60s, 70s, 80s. 80s featured new basketball teams, expansion teams. They don't tell you that. I'm talking about in the early 80s. 90s. You see how propaganda can limit thought if you're not encouraged to do research. Like anybody who's listening to this video, I encourage anybody to do their own research. Like when we, members of the crew, the Behind the Bench crew, when we provide our content or give, I don't want to say opinion, but our view on what we see transpire, we encourage everyone, do your research to validate what we're saying, to realize that we try to be as credible as possible. That's why I want to highlight what one of the subscribers corrected me on and saying when the All-Star game originated. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. That's what great communication is about. These talk shows of today, these sports shows, everything is one-sided. Their opinions are not challenged when they really need to be. Now, at one time, they didn't need to be challenged. The coverage on the NBA was on point. You know what I'm saying? That's why we enjoyed it so much. We scheduled our day around listening to those great voices of the NBA who covered the league. It made our day, man. I'm telling you, the bar has been lowered. But anyway, getting back to the expansion. And I'm going to talk about this debate here. That to me is bogging. It's become a hindrance, and it has created a situation where the NBA is stuck. Essentially, is stuck when they have a great future that awaits if they get out the way. They won't get out the way. That's the problem. But when those expansion teams started to improve, and they did so fast, it wasn't like it took expansion teams 7 to 8 years to become competitive. Teams like the Miami Heat, the Orlando Magic, they became competitive in playoff. In Charlotte Hornets, they became playoff level within 3 years. Well, think about it. A staple franchise, like let's look at the San Antonio Spurs. After that amazing run with Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker and Dave Robinson and whatnot, they starting all over again. They haven't been in the playoffs in about, 3-4 years. So it's like what the San Antonio Spurs are going through right now is a similar challenge that an expansion team starts off with. And those expansion teams, man, they improve in such an accelerated rate to where by like 1993, they surpassed the staple franchise of the 80s. They was dominant in the 80s, Lakers, Celtics, and the Pistons. Charlotte Hornets, Orlando Magic, Miami Heat, they all surpassed those three teams. So when they say that, one, Michael Jordan, Chicago Bulls didn't face any competition, it's the first thing from the truth. It's just that it was new teams that was on the rise. And most of the top level collegiate players, like the 2-3-time All-American players that enter the pros, most of those players were drafted by the expansion teams. Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, Larry Johnson, Alonzo Mourning, Glenn Rice, Steve Smith, Ronnie Cycli. We can go on and on and on. Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott, they call him D. Scott. We can go on and on and on. So what I'm getting at is, Those young teams, those expansion teams, man, the NBA was highlighting them, man, because they were so excited that they was improving so in such an accelerated rate that, I mean, by 1995, the Orlando Magic played in the finals. After starting his franchise, I believe that was during the 1989-90 season. They won 50 games within 4 years. You have a lot of, look at the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento Kings, prior to last season, hadn't made the playoffs since 2005. Okay, so what I'm getting at is, man, when all else fails, they know that the All-Star game has been horrific. They know the slam dunk contest, man, is really a thing of the past. Mainly because superstars do not want to participate in it. So if that's the case, just shut it down for the time being. It's not going to disrupt the NBA in any type of way. I'm going to get to this debate. I'm just trying to set a backdrop. The original slam dunk contest occurred in 1976, and that was the ABA dunk contest led by Dr. J. David Thompson, and Dr. J won the first ever dunk contest. And then I believe they had another dunk contest. And then no major dunk contest took place for the next 7 years until 1984 when the NBA picked it up. It became part of its annual All-Star showcase events. So what I'm saying is between those 7 years, the NBA was on point. People was loving the NBA. So you don't need a slam dunk contest for the NBA to draw attention. So for the time being, just shut it down. So that way, people won't be complaining about how bad it is. You see what I'm saying? It's an easy solution. It's an easy solution. So in any other event that's becoming, kind of stale, you shut it down for a while, man, and, you correct some things and then you bring it back later on down the road. No big deal. Okay. So when it comes to this debate, man, I'm shocked that there is a debate. And I'm serious when I say that. Because as a basketball fan of this league for a very, very long time, I try to do my best to uphold history. I love the history of the league. And the history would tell you when things are going good and things are going bad. And the standard was always held in high esteem. So when I look at the grand scope of things and what should entail in being the best or viewed as the best to ever play your sport on a professional level, well, I have to look at those attributes that warrant to even be considered on that level. And in sport in general, the object is to win. And when I mean win, I'm talking about championships. And when I mean championships, I'm saying do it so and accomplish that in a way to where it's not going to be a hindrance to the league at the expense of franchises. Because most dynasties, all dynasties, matter of fact, always start from the bottom up. You look at every dynasty in sports, from basketball to football to baseball, hockey, professional team sport. And you look at even when a college program, football, basketball, when they establish themselves, they always start from the bottom. And then once they solidify themselves, then potentially they could become a dynasty. So what I'm getting at is, man, what I'm getting at is this. The bar has been lowered. It should not be about stats. And I would say that about any athlete. Perfect example in football. When you think about all the all-time great centers. I mean, not centers, but wide receivers who ever played in the NFL. Who is considered the standard? And mind you, I've been a fan of many great wide receivers. Wide receivers that play on my favorite team. Wide receivers that play in the NFC. Wide receivers that play in the AFC. But the standard bearer for all wide receivers, year after year, even after he retired, is Jerry Rice. And why is that? It's not because of his statistical production. It's because he won. 3 Super Bowls with the San Francisco 49ers. And they was year after year, they was always right there as a prime challenger to win it all. And he was a prominent reason why. And when you consider that he was drafted out of Mississippi Valley State, not even a Division I school, and generated a career like he did, and how hard he worked to get there, he is the standard to this day. And I've been a fan of many, Randy Moss, T.O., Terrell Owens. I mean, we can go down the line. Michael Irvin, Sterling Sharp. It's too many to count, but I'm just saying, Andre Rison, receivers who competed during the same era as Jerry Rice, And it's great receivers in the league right now. Don't get me wrong. Great receivers, but he is the standard. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is they don't necessarily lower the bar in the NFL, per se. The nature of the sport does not really allow that to happen. Okay, so let's get to this debate right here, man, because they're talking about it once again after another disappointing All-Star game. So they want to take attention away from that and the fact that players have, 4 days off before the season resumes, which is another problem. Okay. Realistically, and this is the question that should be asked on these when it comes to this debate, but it's never asked. And I will mention this what the question should be at the end of this video. Realistically, how can someone surmise that a basketball player who's played on multiple teams, and this is not personal, this is just when we start talking about competition and maintaining the bar, maintaining the standard, highlighting what professional sports is supposed to be about. When you draft a player, like particularly like a lottery bound player, like a number 1 pick, or someone like someone who is among the top lottery picks every year, and you draft them to your team, your hope is you can build a team around that player to pursue a championship. It ain't about playoffs. No, it's about the dreams of winning the championship. So how can a player who's been on multiple teams by choice over the past 15 years, essentially 4 different teams, and lost 6 championships in his career, be compared to a man who, during his prime years, won 6 championships on the same team with no defeats? Not only that, won 6 championships in 8 years. Not only that, in between that run, he retired to go play another sport. And essentially, arguably, left 2 on the table for someone else to win. Not only that, led 2 three-peat runs. Not only that, never faced a Game 7 in the finals. Not only that, never fell down 2-1, never faced a 2-1 deficit in any of those finals. Not only that, won MVP, finals MVP for every championship. You see how absolute that is? You don't have to downgrade nobody else. You don't have to trash players of the 80s. You don't have to trash players of the 70s. You don't have to trash players of the 60s or the 50s to state the case that player A in Chicago proved to be unbeatable at the highest level of competition in his sport. And before fans of player B try to bring up the level of competition, well, the first championship was against a team that won 58 games that features a Mount Rushmore player in Magic Johnson, runner-up to MVP. And 92 faced a team that won 57 games, the deepest team in the league for 3 years, that featured, many people would say, a top 30, 35 player, and was the runner-up to MVP in Clyde Drexler. Beat a 62-win team that featured the league MVP, one of the greatest small forwards that ever played this game. And all 3 players that I mentioned, in Charles Barkley, all 3 players I mentioned were all members of the original Dream Team. Then beat a 64-win team that featured the best two-way point guard, arguably the best defensive point guard of all time, and get you 20 points to boot. And threw the greatest alley-oop passes in the league, arguably ever, in Gary Payton. And defeated the best power forward in the league for that season in Shawn Kemp, one of the top 5, top 6 greatest slam dunkers of all time. And that team, the Seattle Sonics, was the second best defensive rated team in the league, only behind the Chicago Bulls, which is why the scoring in that series was so low. Then you beat a team that won 64 games and then 62 games respectively, that featured arguably the greatest pick and roll tandem in league history, a point guard who's the all-time leader in steals and assists, and the third all-time leading scorer and one of the greatest power forwards of all time in Karl Malone and John Stockton. And also, they were members of the original Dream Team. You see, it's so absolute in nature, man. It's like maybe fans don't believe and think it's like a myth or something. So let's go to player B. He's a superstar. His original team tried to build a champion roster around him in 09 and 010. They won 65 games in 09, well, 66 games in 09, and 61 games 2010. His teams were picked to win the championship both years. And neither year his team got to the finals. One year they was favored to win it all. They didn't even reach the conference finals. I'm going strictly off the record. This is not hyperbole. This is not trying to make stuff up, gem stuff up. This is the history. Well, that player B, LBJ, LeBron James, he went to go form a super team with 2 other franchise players. Not 2 other all-stars, 2 other franchise players. First time we ever seen 3 franchise players, 2 top 5 players, and a top 10 player join forces in their prime. And out of that effort, in them 4 years, they won 2 championships, but they lost 2 championships. Player B, LBJ, lost his first 2 finals, while player A never lost. So right there, he's behind the 8 ball. Now remember, his team was favored to win it all in 09 and 010, and his first year on the Miami Heat, they was favored to win. Where Jordan's first championship, his team was favored to lose. His team was the underdog. And he won the championship in 5 games. See, the separation is already showing right there in the early stage. And the fact that you had to form a super team to win, that sets you back even more if you uphold the standard and maintain the bar. Only way you can try to compare it and justify it is if you lower the bar and you generate points of rationale. But when you win in an absolute nature, you don't have to contort anything. Because in this business, it's supposed to be about winning. Going through the fire. Going through the struggle. To hoist that trophy. But if you're taking the lesser road travel, well, fans who uphold the bar will always look at that situation and say to themselves, how can these 2 players compare? See, it's simple. It's simple. Okay, then another super team is formed in Cleveland. Contrary to popular belief, that featured more offensive latent talent and more elite three-point shooting than the super team in Miami. And during those 4 years, you win 1 championship that involved the league stepping in to rule a suspension of a player. Not just a player, but a key player. When his team was down 3-1. With game 5 scheduled to be on the road. So logic would tell you if you down 3-1, that means you lost a game at home in the finals to go down 3-1. So the momentum is with the team that just went up 3-1 in game 4. So logic would tell you that this series, more than likely, if that player had not been suspended, would have been over in 5 games. And we're talking about player B. At that point, holding a championship record of 2 wins and 5 losses. And the other guy, long retired, is sitting there with a 6-0 record in championship play. But see, the punters of today would try to get fans to focus on the first round. The first round should not even be a focus, especially when you starting out on a team that was losing before you got there and you was drafted with the number 3 pick. Do you notice? Now, I'm speaking from a historical view. I'm not speaking as a Chicago Bull fan. I'm not speaking as a Jordan fan. I'm not speaking as a LeBron James fan or a Cleveland Cavalier fan. Do you notice? I don't see Michael Jordan fans point out that LeBron James didn't reach the playoffs in his first 2 years, because that should not be a basis for an argument for a player who was starting out number 1 pick with a team that had been losing before he got there. So that would, see, the thing is, that would be unfair to point that out knowing that's the case, to try to state who's historically better. I look at it as, okay, LeBron first year they didn't make the playoffs. They improved the second year, and then he got in his third year. There's plenty of players who was drafted high by losing teams that didn't make the playoffs until about their third year. I think that's the case of Patrick Ewing, the case of players like maybe like Allen Iverson or Grant Hill. But that's not a basis for an argument. It's not. But really, it showed that Jordan was ahead of the schedule in leading his team to the playoffs as a rookie anyway. So when people say he lost in the first round, in all actuality, they point out how great he was. If you look at it in full context and apply logic. So you leave Cleveland, you come to the Lakers, and their entire young core is exempted and flipped around to try to form a super team. So the pattern to me is player B needs to stack the deck to win, because for some reason he continues to do it. Where player A rolls with the same players year after year after year after year after year. You didn't hear about constant trade rumors and trade talks doing player A run with his team. And then they'll tell you that winning 3 championships with 3 different teams should be held in higher esteem than a player who wins a multitude of championships on one squad. But if you look at it in the context of logic and degree of difficulty, it's harder to win 6 championships on one team, because you're doing it with the same teammates time and time again, and you're facing a new challenger every year that's building themselves up to try to dethrone you. That's where dynasties are born. You can't be a dynasty by going from team to team and stacking the deck. That's why they call it a dynasty. That means you die nasty. Before you take me out, man, you got to take us out. And that's why player A said that we should have had the right to continue our run until someone dethrone us. That's absolute. But when you go this way, stacking the deck every year, throwing all the chips in the middle of the table, you in win now mode, but you're not winning. When you look at the tail of the tape, man, realistically, the player B, more often than not, you're going to lose in the end. Player A, it's in the bag before the series starts. Because when player A start winning, when his teammates start to fulfill their role, when Scottie Pippen grew into a bona fide number 2 option, this man was unbeatable. Once he won the first championship, as long as he was in the league, you never felt he was going to lose again. That was the feeling. The other guy is more of a sense of shock when he do win. So when I look at it in full scope, man, from a historical viewpoint, maintaining the bar, upholding the history, there is no debate. See, if it was a legit debate, they wouldn't have to talk about it every day. That's the whole point. If you maintain the bar, do not lower the bar, and be consistent across the board. And this is the question that should be asked on these shows. With the title on the line, with the title on the line, with everything at stake, if your job was on the line, who you picking to take you to the promised land? Who are you really picking? To where you're not disappointed by the end of the series. See, fans of the Chicago Bulls, when they reach the finals, they never experience heartbreak of losing at that level. Never. Not one time. You ask these cats that question that have the platform and propagate this debate on a daily basis, I guarantee you they would freeze. There wouldn't be no narratives. There wouldn't be no agendas. Logic would tell them that they would have to pick the player A that's undefeated. They never faced the Game 7. They never faced a 2-1 deficit. They didn't have to stack the deck. They didn't have to call for trades every day. All the hard work and the sacrifice to get to the top was done up front. So once he broke through, it was over. You asked them that question, who you picking with the title on the line, they would freeze. And they would have to come real. Real deal Holyfield is what they say. So I just want to drop that nugget. And until next time, this is JB for a BTB Behind the Bench.